That's all we can do. We can't like go back and like be born into somebody else's lifestyle or somebody else's upbringing. We can only try to use the opportunities that we've been given to help.
Kit, welcome to POVz. I'm so happy to have you. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
I can't wait to dive into all the things that make you you. But before we even dive in, congratulations on graduating. How does it feel?
It has been a big week.
Yeah.
It has been a big week. It
Tell
was
me
my
about it.
graduation Wednesday, like my all school commencement at NYU. And then Thursday was my graduation from Gallatin, which is NYU School of Individualized Study. And then Friday was my birthday, my 23rd birthday. So it was a lot. I was like, when I woke up on Monday before everything, I was like, how am I going to do this week? Like, it was a lot of like big life moments.
Congrats on really everything you've
Thank
accomplished
you.
throughout NYU, and I can't wait to dive into your story.
Yes, I'm so excited.
So every episode here on POVz, we always start out with somewhat of a deep question. So you ready to dive in?
Yes.
Okay, Kit, my question for you is, do you think our parents and the relationships we have with our parents defines us?
In many ways, yes. Like, I wish that were not true, but in my experience, it is very true.
So do you feel like it's inevitable because of the way we're raised?
As a child, those first relationships and those first bonds that you have with your caretaker are so important in like the way that you develop into adulthood, even like in your attachment style and all of that.
I know so much of your journey has been defined by your relationship with your mom.
Mm-hmm.
You even run a podcast together, and
Mm-hmm.
I know that she's probably some of the reason why you're also passionate about fashion, among so many other reasons.
Mm-hmm.
What has your relationship been like with your mom, and how do you think it's influenced who you are today?
I mean, it's kind of annoying because I feel like my mom and I have had such a good relationship throughout my childhood. I think a lot of girls especially like go through that time where they're just fighting with their mom. And I never had that. My mom is a very strong personality, but I think we work together because like if it protects my peace, I will kind of like let her have her way most of the time. Like at the end of the day, I'm just like, I feel so lucky to have her as my mom because she is like the ideal role model. And it like makes me emotional because like she has been through so much and she's given so much to my sister and I and been such an amazing role model for us. When those times when she's like actually pissing me off so much, I'm like, okay, I get where it's coming from, you know?
Sure. You give her some grace.
Yeah, I will give her some grace.
That
always.
sounds so special.
Yeah.
And I know we started off by talking about whether our relationships with our parents define us.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like you've ever been too defined by your relationship with your mom? And do you ever feel like you haven't been able to fully be Kit because of your mom?
Anyone who grows up with a parent who like has a successful career, they always have a fear from like birth, literally, that they're constantly gonna live in their parents' shadow. And I definitely have had that fear growing up. It has made me appreciate what my mom does. Like it's made me appreciate fashion so much, but it's also kind of made me decide like, I don't know if this is what I wanna do because I want to live my own life and like not be defined so much by her career. And I can still respect it and like enjoy fashion so much. I love style. I love like helping my mom with projects. I love styling for her. Like I've styled many of her runway shows, but I don't know if I want to like work in fashion forever, especially since I studied it in college and I studied like more of the sustainability aspect. There's a lot to run away from, I guess, for me in fashion.
I think so much of who you are, it sounds like, was defined by your family and your upbringing, but you've been able to really carve your own path and now graduating college. How do you think you got from point A to point B? When was that moment when you realized really who you were and what mattered to you?
I don't know who I am. Like, I have not come to that point yet. It's a daily struggle, and I feel like it could happen for the rest of my life. Like my biological dad he lives in Brooklyn. He's just very normal guy. He like is an architect and just works a normal job. I asked him this the other day because I was having like a full breakdown. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I think also like the graduating college aspect, that's like such a freak out moment for people. And it was definitely like a little crisis for me. And I asked him like, do you know who you are? Like what you want to do? Like what you want to be when you grow up? And he was like, no, I still don't know. And he's like 70. And so that made me feel a little bit better. And even like for my mom, who she's been making dresses since she was 7 years old. Like she had that one thing when she was little, that one passion that she was like, okay, I'm going to make this into a career. Even like when I ask her sometimes, she's like, I always do collabs and that sort of thing because I don't want to just be a fashion designer. And so I think like most people don't have it figured out and like don't know who they are really. I'm constantly like discovering new aspects about myself, and sometimes I love them and sometimes I hate them, and sometimes I don't want to meet that person inside me that I've been hiding for a while. But like at the end of the day, I just feel like it's kind of a lifelong thing.
Absolutely.
That I'm going to have to be meeting other personalities that are inside me. That sounds a little crazy, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, do any of us really know who we are? I think you're so right. It is a journey. And thank you for normalizing that. I think there's some pressure always to feel like we have it all figured out.
Especially in the time of social media and like content creators. I think that we're all like told the simpler and like the more niche your brand is, the better. And for me, I don't really feel like I fit into like one niche. I feel like I have many varying interests. I think it would be so much easier if I just had like one thing, because then it would narrow me down. It would make me like more consumable to my audience. And it would also make me feel a little bit better because I would be like, oh, this is me.
As someone who does share so much of her life online, how do you avoid getting put into a box?
I mean, people are always going to like put you in a box when you share your life online because it makes it easier. They're like, oh, I follow fashion girl. So if Kit's a fashion girl, I'm going to follow her for that. Or like people who follow me just for my cooking content. I think when you post a lot of different, like a bigger diversity of content, it's better because then you can kind of reach different audiences. Like I have so many people who come up to me on the street and say, oh, I love your cooking stuff. And they don't care about style at all. And then I have people that come up to me that follow me from The Bachelor, or they follow me for my outfits. And so I feel like I touch many different audiences in that way. That's good to have. And I think social media makes it hard to do that because they want something that's like super consumable and one easy brand.
I think it's so nice to hear that you have people who know you for different things instead of feeling like you have to be one thing to everyone. Mm-hmm. So thank you for sharing that. And you mentioned The Bachelor, another piece of your journey that has been in the public eye. What was it like being one of the youngest contestants on your season?
I think when I first arrived, when people heard that I was 21, they were like, what are you doing here? And when I look back on it, sometimes I'm like, that was really weird of me. Like, I didn't think it was like the craziest thing ever for me. And I know that like, if I met someone, I wouldn't be so opposed to like starting my life with them earlier. But that being said, when I first like met all of the girls and everything, I think a lot of them were like, what are you doing? And then once they met me and like we hung out, I think you can get the vibe that I'm a lot more mature for my age. And they all said that after. They were like, we were at first very resistant to the fact that you were so young, but then once we met you, we got it, that like you're a mature individual and like this could work out for you just the same that it could work out for us.
Yeah, it takes getting to know someone and having important conversations.
Yeah.
Looking back on your journey on the show, would you do anything differently?
Sometimes like I wish I had gone a little bit further with the process.
Oh yeah, didn't you leave? You left early?
Yeah. But at the same time, like when I'm still very close friends with Rachel. And when I look at their relationship, I'm like, that would have happened regardless. Like they're a perfect match. Matt and Rachel are. So like, I really have no regrets in that sense. I feel like I went there, like I made amazing friends. I tried something and I really pushed myself out of my comfort zone. Taking a risk and like doing reality TV was literally like, when I told my parents that, they were like, what? No. What
Do you feel like
doing?
in a way you were rebelling by going on the show?
Totally. That was me being like, okay, I'm going to like do my own thing now. And I mean, I didn't ruin my family name, you know? Like if anything, like I came out pretty unscathed, which is hard for reality TV when like your plot line and your whole like character is up to an editor in like a room that doesn't know you.
Do you feel like you were able to be your authentic self on the show?
Definitely, but that didn't always come across. There are certain situations where you're like in a conversation with somebody that maybe you aren't that close with or something like that. And those situations like are kind of meant to produce a certain outcome, I guess.
For sure.
It's hard to explain that feeling unless you've like been in that situation. But basically it's like in your normal life, you are surrounded by people that you love and that you know, and suddenly like you're completely cut off from all of reality. I didn't know like who was elected president because I was like in this bubble with no news, no phones, nothing. That like environment completely pulled out a whole other side of me that I remember I came back and I was like, whoa, that was like, there were a lot of moments where I was like, whoa, that was not me. And I would never act like that, like dating someone. I'm very closed off mostly, like when I start dating someone, and in that situation, I was not at all. And I feel like it made me change the way I date people now, because even like sometimes on first dates, like I will say things or like I'll open up a conversation that probably people would wait until like the third date to talk about. For me, that just seems like more normal and it expedites the dating process, which no one wants to like go on a million first dates, you know? So like if I can kind of weed out some people like right at the beginning by being able to talk about more vulnerable conversations like on a first or second date, amazing.
It's huge.
So it was like, in terms of dating life, it was like a crash course on dating.
You really are a natural conversationalist. I mean, you're even having these conversations that are important and vulnerable on first dates, and I really admire that about you. As someone who's constantly creating content and putting yourself out there on social media, on national TV, do you feel like you are able to share the more vulnerable sides of yourself?
For anyone who does this full time, you have to have a separation between your online persona and yourself. Because if you're constantly just like pouring out your most emotional self online, you will completely lose yourself. Like you will go insane. And so I have an alter ego. I call her Instagram Kit. And that's who I am online most of the time. And it's very close to the person I am in real life. I'm definitely a little bit more shy. I'm a little bit more like reserved. And online, I have this person that like is my most confident self. In some ways, like I have started to kind of become that person in my real life, which is nice. But I also know like at the end of the day, I have this part of me that is very reserved, that is like, that I need my alone time like crazy, that is more of an introvert. It's really nice to have that separation, because when I get hate online or like when people are criticizing me, I'm like, okay, there's a little bit of a separation between that. They're criticizing Instagram Kit. They're not criticizing like who I really am, because they don't know who I really am like to my core. And you can't get that online. It's literally impossible. You can still be successful online and you can still be a content creator without like being this super vulnerable, authentic version of yourself for people to criticize.
Yeah, and consume.
I'm not only protecting my own brand, but like I'm protecting my mom's brand and like my family's brand. So I couldn't share everything online because it would reflect poorly sometimes on my family. And that's something that I have to take into account.
Do you ever feel, because of that pressure to be the best representation of your family, to fully be your authentic self online, do you ever sometimes feel like you have to play this role in other aspects of your life?
I definitely play certain roles, like in relationships, I would say. Like in my family, I'm the arbiter of situations. Like I'm always going to be the one who's like, okay, everyone, let's like calm down. There's no need to fight and stuff like that, because I just rather maintain homeostasis like in my life. I don't have like as many lows because I don't let myself get there. But sometimes that also makes me kind of not have as many highs because I'm just like trying to survive.
I hear you. It sounds like in some ways you're also Switzerland. Like you're trying to keep the peace.
Yeah.
And as someone who really doesn't like conflict, do you feel like you're able to embrace really difficult conversations?
Fortunately, I feel like I'm not in conversation with people who have like super opposing views to me. I don't have like anyone in my family who's like super conservative or anything like that. It's a fortunate thing for my like for my mental state and like the way that I am, because I hate conflict. At the same time, you can't really have like change if you're not having those types of disagreements. And so that's kind of like a negative aspect of it.
Yeah, I think to some degree we're all brought up in echo chambers, right? And we're in bubbles. I think it's awesome that you still see the value in having those disagreements and being able to have those hard conversations, because that's how we're going to change the world as we know it. Knowing what you know now as a college grad, as someone who has been in so many different spaces, what do you know now that you wish you knew then?
I recognize the way that I grew up, the way that I look, my race, my class, all of that puts me in a very unique, privileged standing in the world. And I think like I've always been a pretty good listener. So I've always been like open to learning. But I think like in recent years, I've been so much better about being an active listener. And I think that for people who come from a similar background to me, our job most of the time is honestly to listen. And so I would just say like, start there.
That's such great advice.
Yeah.
Every meaningful conversation always starts with listening. And I always like to say, listen to others with the same passion you feel for being heard. And if we could all do a little bit more of that, I think the world would be a much more unified place.
Totally.
That was great advice.
Thank you.
So Kit, I want to bring us to my favorite segment here on POVz, where we're going to start bringing in some POVs from the larger Gen Z community. So keep an eye on your phone. We're going to send you some texts and I want you to read them out loud and react.
People who talk about being authentic are toxic. It's never possible to be your true authentic self in a world with social media. It's just not.
It's like everything we talked about.
Literally exactly what I was just saying. I fully agree with this. Like, I genuinely think there's no way to be authentic because first off, having a camera there that already makes you like act slightly different than you would if you're just alone. And secondly, like you would have to be filming 24/7 and posting 24/7. Like it's just impossible. I second this person. Like I agree with that. And don't feel pressure to be authentic because authentic is just like a brand at this point.
Or a buzzword.
Yeah.
Do you feel like we're all trying to become our most authentic selves? Or do you think that person is right that people who talk about being authentic is toxic?
What has helped me most is having like a separation between my online persona and myself. And I think when you try to like combine those two closely, it becomes toxic. Moms should be moms, not friends. I don't get why people are friends with their parents. This one's really pointed right at me. My mom is still my mom, but we are very close. My mom got remarried when I was like 6. And so in those like crucial first years, it was just my mom and I. And so I think that made our bond a lot closer. If your mom happens to be your friend, I think that's good. But also like, it's the same situation as when people say their boyfriend is their best friend. That's weird to me because like you should also have a best friend. And so like my mom is an amazing mom and also a friend to me, but also I have my best friend. Like, she's not my best friend, you know? If you're relying on your mom or your boyfriend to be your best friend, that's weird.
That's a hot take.
Yeah. Sustainable fashion is always way too expensive. It's insulting to sustainability to make every item so overpriced. Make sustainability more affordable. I think there's a lot of ways to like wear sustainable clothing. I definitely have a balance of wearing like more sustainable brands that are more expensive and posting that. And then I also like, I will throw in some pieces that are less expensive and more affordable, because I get that there needs to be a balance of those two things. I'm constantly looking for secondhand pieces as well. And I think that's like a great way to have a sustainable or like revolving closet and not spend thousands and thousands of dollars on it.
Yeah. It's cool that that's something you're actively thinking about.
Honestly, I don't think nepotism is a bad thing. It's not the person's fault they were born into the family they were born into. I mean, I get comments all the time like privileged, which is it's meant to be a hate comment. I don't see it as a hate comment because I am privileged. Like, I have been given so many amazing things in my life that have literally just been handed to me. The only time that hate gets to me is when it's about something that like I'm actually insecure about. Like when people say like she's bad at cooking, or like her recipes suck, then I'm like, oh my God, that's the worst thing someone could say about me, because I am insecure about it. And so sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I need to like go to France and like train to be a professional chef for me to ever post anything about my cooking online again. It sucks that like we live in a world that's not equal. But at the same time, it's not a bad thing to be born into the life that I was born into. Like, it's not a bad thing to me at all. It's actually amazing. But it's something that I have to recognize that it's not everyone's experience.
No, thank you for sharing that. I definitely have been feeling that way too a lot lately. Sometimes when I hear people say privilege, I immediately assume it's a negative connotation, but I think it's important that we address it. And we talk about it. I feel like the word privilege can sometimes be the elephant in the room. And I think it's awesome that it's something that you say yes and. I also come from a very privileged background. And I find that it's all about what we do with our privilege.
Yeah, and exactly. You're doing amazing things with the privileges that you've been given in your life. That's all we can do. We can't like go back and like be born into somebody else's lifestyle or somebody else's upbringing. We can only try to use the opportunities that we've been given to help.
For sure. And so are you. You're doing amazing things.
Influencers in New York are so fake. I don't get why anyone would want to be one. What I was saying before is like, I am kind of fake online a little bit. I don't get why anyone would want to be one. Doesn't make any sense to me, because like, I love my job. It's like actually the best job ever. Influencers aren't like super fake to one another. So I feel like I have like a great supportive community of people that do social media in New York. And like, I've never had a bad experience with anyone.
Do you identify with the word influencer? Do you like the word influencer?
I used to hate the word influencer. And like, whenever I would do like interviews and stuff like that, I would like try to think of another word. And now I feel like again, like I feel so lucky to be able to do this as a career. I don't care. Like if you want to hate on me for that word or for what I do, I feel like that just sucks for you, because it doesn't hurt me. Like I love what I do.
I'm happy that that's something that you embrace.
Yes. Awesome. It's definitely an icky word though, like in society, but I feel like I'm very fine with it at this point.
That's awesome.
No one goes on The Bachelor for the right reasons. Let's be honest. You're all there for a platform. I mean, now I think that's definitely like part of it. Anyone who goes on reality TV knows that like now in this day and age, like social media is something that most people like do after doing reality TV. But I also think that like there are some people that go on the show that like just don't do social media after. That just kind of like just go about their lives after. That wasn't my experience. That's also because I was doing social media before I went on The Bachelor. I think also like you can't say that until you've been there, because like I can fully say from the bottom of my heart that like when I was on that show and when I was like going through that experience, the only thing I could think of was Matt James. Like, actually, and when I talked to every single other person who was like there with me and who was doing it, who was like going through the whole process with me, you have no other stimulation, you have no other goal but to like work on your relationship and fall in love. That is your only goal. And in no other like part of your life have you ever like had such just it's like a one-track mind almost, where you're just like, this is all I can think about, and like I'm going to do this to the best of my ability. And it works for people. I mean, like, look at the track record of the show. When I look at Matt and Rachel's relationship, like, it's so great and they're so in love. And so like, I think it does work for some people when that's your only focus and like everything around you is lining up to create a situation where you are like best set up to fall in love. You're probably going to, you know?
No, I'm happy you shared that. I think for people on the outside looking in, you know, they don't quite understand what the purpose is, probably other than to get exposure or to promote something. And it's awesome to hear that you were there for the right reasons.
Yeah, I mean, I think like coming off of it, like I'm so happy for all of the opportunities that it's given me. Looking back, I was so focused on like my relationship in that setting. And it's because like that's the only thing. Every day you wake up and your only goal for the day is like to talk about The Bachelor, to see The Bachelor, to like spend as much time with The Bachelor. Like that is the goal of the show. We would either be going on dates or like doing interview time. So that's like sitting one-on-one with a producer. All you would talk about 24/7.
Yeah, it's a lot of time in that controlled environment, no phone, and it seems like it gave you a lot of perspective.
I definitely learned about myself a lot and like how I perform in stressful situations. I met a lot of amazing women that I'm still very close with. I don't regret doing it at all.
Why would we live life with regrets, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's some things that people can rightfully regret.
Kit, I feel like I learned so much about your life today and really what got you to where you are. And now that the world is your oyster post-college, if you had a megaphone that could reach all of Gen Z, what would you say and what would you want them to know?
I would say like recently something I've really been thinking about is about like worrying about what other people think about you. That's a question that I've been getting so much in Q&As recently. And I just feel like it's something that like a lot of people are thinking about. And I just keep coming back to this quote: if you wouldn't let somebody into your house, why let them into your head? And I think it's so important to think about the people in your life that you love and that care for you and care about you and want to see the best for you. You would let them into your house. So you should let them give you advice sometimes. Whereas the people that don't care about you and want the worst for you, don't let them into your head, because their opinions are based on fleeting notions of you that maybe you share online or maybe you like show at school or like in the office once in a while, and they're not the full picture of who you are as a person.
I love that. I'm going to start using that now, and I'm going to quote you. I think that is such an awesome way to approach the world. And Kit, thank you for sharing so many things about your journey today and for all the reasons that make you you. You're making such an awesome impact on Gen Z, and I can't wait to see where you go next.
Thank you. This was so fun.
This
was
was
such a good time.
Bring it in.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much. You were great.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, well, that's it. How do you feel?
Good. I feel good. Yeah. I feel like, I mean, I could like talk forever, and I also like do this with my mom a lot. So
I mean, you're a podcast host.
yeah, I could
We
talk
didn't talk
forever.
at all about ageless.
That question about like worrying about what other people think has been on everyone's mind.
Everyone. Even I get asked it a ton.
Yeah.